Watch me walk across that road.
We're educating through the lens of the movement of disability culture. Saskatchewan ranks really low. It's not that we don't have services and organizations that are working extraordinarily well with people that live with disability and supporting, but our overall understanding of disability as a culture is extraordinarily low.
Can I say crip art? Is that the word you're saying?
I really had never heard the word crip culture before Tracy said it to me recently.
Disability culture is important to understand as a concept because it gives a touchstone, a landing point for people with disability to understand themselves and to see themselves in the world in a multitude of different ways, so that when we're talking about disability sport, it's not Paralympian or bust. When we're talking about disability art, it's not Broadway or bust. Understanding that those nuances in community and in different ways of expressing ourselves are equally as valid and equally as skill building.
I would define disability culture as a movement that aims to support open access for all and is understood through the people with the lived experiences that are continuing to define what disability culture is, moment by moment.
When we talk about a culture, we think about the things that relate to that identity. And within disability culture, that's things like the art that we produce, the sports that we play, the music that we understand, the books that we read consistently.
If we want a truly diverse and inclusive world that makes the most of everyone's potential, that opens the door up for everybody and what they can bring to the world, then disability culture needs to be acknowledged as part of that. And it needs to be considered in how we build buildings and how we present art, how we structure the educational system, how we do politics, everything.
We are not interested in your pity or sympathy. We are comfortable in our skin.
I think there's something that clicks that we are now a little bit more able to detect. Oh, yes, there is a community and there's a culture. It's still recent for me, it's still new, the term crip art, for example. But I think we are more able now to spread that knowledge and to recognize that as a culture.
Disability being understood as a culture is a long-standing tradition in other areas of the world.
Myself and some other members have really begun to think through the lens of crip culture, or disability culture. Before that, we were simply making art and considering ourselves to be disabled artists, declaring.
All art is a combination of technique and art form and the world that the artist comes from. It's like looking at an artist who's coming from an indigenous practice and saying, well, is that art, or is it, traditional practices? And you go, yes, you're right there. It is those things. Because if you're thinking anything else, then what you're saying is that what all other cultures do is somehow craft and what dominant Western European able-bodied, pretty well male-dominated culture does is art.
I'm so inspired by the space that has been cultivated and carved for crip artists, for people with disabilities, for those who are so often considered other. And I come from, in my earliest years of my practice, from a really traditional practice, from theater spaces that only now are starting to be real about inclusion, not just inclusion of audience, but inclusion of artists and certain people's voices and certain people's stories.
Beginning to work with disability artists and beginning to see what's referred to in the culture as interdependence, and how much deeper that goes beyond ensemble work and collaboration to a really an in-depth reliance on each other and a freedom to be able to say, I can't do this today. Can you do this today? Or just, I can't do this today, so we won't do it. And to trust that that's part of what, in fact, that's part of what you bring to the thing, right? Because we're trying to create real human beings on the stage, right? Who have their ups and downs and ins and outs. I've seen that acted upon and really honored in the work with Listen to This.
But I think that the unpredictability sometimes in disability culture and disability theater also makes discoveries, like is something that brings us to making discoveries. And whether that is, finding a path or a transition that's going to be made in a different way because someone's in a power chair, or just like the way someone's brain works completely different from everyone else, gets to a discovery that otherwise would never be found.
We're so quick to flip the judgment switch. We're so quick to go, well, that doesn't feel like art to me. You don't know. You don't know till you sit with it.
And the need for accessibility and inclusion.
Our broken bodies are not the problem.
It is simply what goes on in our minds and how we use them.
Besides ourselves as a disability cultural organization and the Deaf Crows, but that's within deaf culture, there isn't any representation of disability culture or any real sophisticated understanding of it. So it's through the lack of understanding of what disability culture actually is and the necessity to disrupt that we have become committed to not only creating art and opportunity through art, but we've become committed to educating about what disability culture is.
I'm stronger every day. I've got my faith. I've got no time to waste to get to where I need to be. I got my back to the wall. I've got nowhere to fall. I'm standing up tall. Watch me walk across that river. Look the devil in the eye.